but we got Trump. He's got a ton of trials coming up, but the big one coming up soon is going to be March 25th. So far, it looks like, and that's the felony fraud case in New York, and it's 31 felony charges. So what happened is they did the civil fraud case in New York, and Judge Engoron was the one who oversaw that, and then Alina Habba was Trump's lawyer, and she screwed that whole thing up. And now Engoron right now was supposed to give a judgment at the end of February, or not February, end of January. Right now, here we are a couple of weeks into February, and he still hasn't given his answer yet. And the reason was because the independent inspector came back, and she basically said, yeah, they're still committing fraud, and they were the whole time they were in trial. And furthermore, an article came out that Alan Weiselberg, who was Trump's CFO, right, his chief financial officer, turns out he's trying to cut a deal now with Alvin Bragg, who's the criminal DA in New York. And the deal is he's going to plead to perjury so he doesn't have to do more jail time. And the perjury is because he lied in Engoron's court. So Engoron was like, well, wait a minute. He lied, so now I have to consider that in my judgment too. So I'm sure Engoron had his judgment already written out, and then all this shit happened after the trial ended, and now he's got to go, well, now that's got to factor in. So now he's got to rewrite a lot of his judgment. So Engoron basically wrote an email to both the plaintiff, the prosecuting attorney, and the defense attorney in the civil case saying, what's going on with this? Is he actually pleading? What did he lie about? What do you know? Right. Well, Alina Habba and her other buddy, who was the other lawyer was, they emailed him back, and it did not go well. And here's Michael Popak, and he's going to talk about this on the Midas Touch, but this is just hilarious to me.
Of Cliff Robert and Alina Habba, at least Cliff Robert, for misleading the judge and for attacking him inappropriately. That could be a bar violation. But we'll put that aside for a minute. The judge continues. Arguing against judicial notice is attacking a struck person. In other words, I didn't say I was going to take notice of the New York Times article. And the judge says, I've not taken, nor do I plan to take judicial notice, and did not suggest or hint that I would take judicial notice of the New York Times article or the contents of it. Similarly, I have not taken, do not plan to take, nor have I suggested that I'm going to take the Times article into consideration in my findings of fact. I don't plan, did not plan, and didn't hint that I would invoke the legal doctrine of falsus in uno, meaning if you lie about one thing, you lie about all things, on the story. Any such invocation would be based on trial testimony and or a guilty plea. However, if tomorrow, interesting choice of timing, Mr. Weiselberg publicly confesses to having committed perjury about a significant matter in the case before me, or he pleads guilty to such perjury at any time before I issue my final decision, I will research and consider what the law allows. I take seriously my obligation to find the facts and determine the truth. To that end, and here's the admonishment, the knuckle rapping by the judge of Trump's lawyer. I find it appropriate to have reached out to counsel for Mr. Weiselberg, who is a defendant in this case, to inquire as to her, that's Alina Habba, her knowledge of this serious allegation. Indeed, Rule 3.3A3 of the Ethics Rules provides that if a lawyer's client offered material evidence and the lawyer comes to know of its falsity, the lawyer shall take reasonable remedial measures, including, if necessary, disclosure to the tribunal. I've done that. You step aside, you dismiss the jury, you meet with the judge in chambers with opposing counsel, and you tell them that you think your client.
So that's the rub. So the judge is saying, look, right now it's just an article. I'm not going to factor in the article. I need facts. I need actual evidence. So if he does plead to a perjury, I need to know what he's going to plead to, or what he did plead to, because that's going to affect my judgment. Because right now, remember, he's sitting on barring Trump from ever doing business again in New York. And Letitia James, who's the civil DI, I guess, she asked for $370 million, but it might be higher than that now. He might be looking at $500 million. Plus, you got to remember, this goes back in New York. It goes back 6 years on the statute for limitations. So they can go back 6 years, which they'll probably do, and he has to pay 9% a year. So that if it's 500 million, it could all of a sudden be like 800 million with interest over 6 years at 9%.
800 million. Oh my gosh. That's a number that takes your breath away.
Oh yeah, which means they'll be seizing his properties and he won't be able to do any business in New York.
So imagine that. Think about all of like what that means. Like, you can't do business in New York. 800 million means, I don't know how much of your property is seized, but probably a pretty substantial amount of it, right? I mean, and if New York won't do business with you, I mean, pull the string on that.
Well, you're not going to be able to do.
If New York wouldn't do business with somebody,
you're not going to be able to do business. Yeah, you're not going to be able to do business in the U.S. anymore. Probably not most of Europe. But what Trump has been doing is he's been trying to do more business in Saudi Arabia and in Russia. Well, if that's the case, do you really want a president who's in bed with Saudi Arabia and Russia and owes them for all of his income? Do you really want that guy running your country when he's owned by foreign governments, especially dictatorships? So that's a big issue there. The funny thing with Habba, though, is here's the deal. If Weiselberg perjured himself on the stand and it's determined that she knew he was lying, when you're an attorney, if you ask a witness, especially your witness, something that you know they're lying about, and you don't tell the judge in private or, remove yourself from the case, right? Recuse yourself, essentially. If you don't do those things, then essentially you're also guilty of lying and perjuring yourself if you don't correct it. So if I ask you, Lacey, did you see this thing happen? And you say no, and I know for a fact you did, I have to say, Your Honor, we need to speak in chambers. The witness just lied on the stand. Right? If I don't do that, I could be in trouble. I could lose my bar license. So now she's going to probably be back into the Bar Association in New York, and they're going to be going, well, hey, if you perjured yourself, we're going to pull your bar license. You can't practice in New York ever again. Which means they'll pull it everywhere else too. But then she's also looking at the same thing where she lied to a client to try and help out Trump back in Florida. Plus, she's looking to get sanctioned from the E.G. and Carroll case, the rape defamation case, right? Because she basically threatened the judge and the other attorney after the case was over. And so she's looking at getting sanctioned for that. So whatever $3 million, $2.5 million she made from Trump, she's going to end up paying that all back in fines. And so she's looking really bad right now. She was just, they're like, everybody's making fun of, like, she's the worst attorney Trump's ever had. And you're like, wow, that's saying a lot since he had Rudy Giuliani.
Man, and you know what? You do not want that being your claim to career fame right there.
Yeah, whatever career she had, it's pretty much over. I mean, she might still get some cases from some scumbags here and there, but nobody's going to pay her that much. And she's obviously proven she's incompetent, and she just makes it worse. She sort of looks good playing to the Trump's base on TV, but that's all she's got. In court, she can't do shit. She's worthless.
I feel like she's going to have to go the way of Better Call Saul, if anything. You know what I'm saying? Jeez.
Well, at least he was smart enough to cover up his shit. And he wouldn't have fucking done. He wouldn't have done stupid shit like this.
Yeah. He at least was a little smarter about the way he went about it.
Yep. And yeah. So that was that. Oh man, so Alina Habba, God. Be glad to see her go, but I'll miss her a little bit because she's been a lot of entertainment. What was her famous line when she was on Patrick Bet-David? She said, somebody asked me, would I rather be smart or pretty? And I said, easy, pretty, because I can fake being smart. We're like, yeah, apparently you can't, Alina.
How's that working for you, lady? How's that working for you?
Not working out well.